All right, we're here with Piggyman versus Seto for Clan League. This is on the Brotherhood of Seed rule set, which means it is levels 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. All cards must be female, must pick one card from each level. I think that's the rule set. Piggyman went with the Glorious Meluda. We all love FF Tactics. And let's think a moment about his hand, because if you're in Seto's position, usually checking the opponent's hand for potential weaknesses. A lot of tri-directional cards for Piggy, and I recently had a conversation with Piggy where my videos may have bullied him a little into picking more tri-directional cards than he normally would. We'll see how it works out, right? A card like 8197 has a lot of raw power, but sometimes when not used well, has limited plus wall potential. And I don't mean to say not used well in some like condescending way. I mean to say like sometimes I use them and I handle them really well, and sometimes I use them and I handle them abysmally and they feel like weaknesses. And I'm never sure how they're going to turn out. So okay. 971A is mostly a card for 9, but can perform backup purpose. Let's treat 8982 as a card for 1 that can also play for 7. 8197 is a card for 3 that can also go nicely in 9. 7827 is a card for 7 that can also go in 9. And 4367 is a card for 3. It makes sense to have the last card be a corner there, given that that's the one where you had the least secondary coverage, right? You had the fewest cards that could do double duty, having strength in that direction. On Seto's side, we have a classic A9 and 9-9 pairing, very powerful in general. We have strong corners. So this is very much a battle of someone who has gone really hard in the tri-directional thing of I want all my cards to have 3 directions, they're good, and someone who has gone very hard on I want to make sure I have really good corner values. And taking the 5th card, leaving them with 4 corners, and dropping that card in 5, leaving it surrounded by corners. Interestingly, Piggyman is the one using Arania here, which is normally very popular with Brotherhood of Seed members. But, okay, we have a 5 starter. Now, I am low on 5 starters, but I am high on anything Seto does. So, we'll see how it goes. First thing I notice is Piggyman actually has more kind of raw connection with that, but via plus wall, than Seto does, right? 7827 has a plus wall in 8. 971A has a plus wall in 6. Probably neither of these matter all that much. And Seto's same wall in 4 could prove more effective, because generally speaking, that card has low numbers. So it's kind of unlikely to actually lead to big combo chains. So in general, you'd want, if you do have a plus wall or same wall, it to be on the weakest part, so it's more likely it flips extra stuff. All right. Now, Seto's hand visually, I think, is a bit stronger side to side. If we add it up quick, Seto has 26 power facing up and 23 power facing down with 2 3s. Has 26 power to the right, and has 30 power to the left. So in general, strongest going left, weakest going down, better going left-right than up-down. Which means maybe the move should be in 2 or 8 to guarantee we have an up-down game. Maybe that's an idea. Is there a way to do so that feels comfortable? Just going to check that same wall is on. It is. There aren't many half safeties, though, because Piggyman's strongest number going down is a 9, and 9s are actually quite well covered. What about Piggyman's 9s going up? Well, 9835 can now take 9s facing up from 9. And it can take 9s facing up from 7. Seto always pulls things together annoyingly well, so the 9s are covered. How about the 8s? So I'm starting to think maybe an interesting move is Elena in 7. No, it's not. What am I doing? I don't like that move at all. Seto's moves are always so much more annoying than I feel they have any right to be. Okay. How about 8982 in 8? No, they just play 9835 and 7. What am I doing? I just wanted to create something that created difficulties. No, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. If 8982 and 8, 9835 and 7 is indeed safe, but we can reply 971A and 9, and we have 2 safe cards to their 1. And if they don't go in 7 immediately, we threaten to block 7 with something and potentially take advantage of their down weakness. And also, they have trouble playing in 9 with Garuda because we have a same with 8197 in 6. So I could see 8982 and 8 being a decent way to play this. But, weird position. I'd be a little uncomfortable here. I don't feel there's some, clear answer. Get ready to put the moves in for my database. Obviously, we're rooting for Piggyman. We are, of course, rooting for AVL. And the greatest clan, objectively. This is a very tough matchup. This is, in general, actually a really interesting matchup between the two clans. A lot of excellent games there. Let me bring it up. But, yeah, this is a big match. I think entering the tournament, as I record this, TM is doing the best. TM is ahead against FFF, has no games played in their matchup with AVL, have won both of the games played against T3, and have a win in 2 ties against Brotherhood of Seed, guaranteeing at least a tie in that matchup, and if Aesala does not lose, TM will win that matchup. So TM are early leaders, they are playing great. But AVL and Brotherhood of Seed, I think coming in, most would agree, were the 2 favorites, and conceivably still are, even with TM's big lead. But you could certainly make the case that TM is now a big favorite. There are 10 match days overall, so, if they come out of the first 5, each plays 8, there's a bye for each team. But if they come out of the first 4 with 3 wins, that's going to be incredibly hard to catch up to. So, or even 4 wins, conceivably. Alright, Piggy's thinking. 8982 and 8 is the best move I've come up with, but it's hard to be all that excited about it. He picks up Elena, 8179. 8197. Goes in 6. I was sort of thinking about this at the start. I didn't mention it. But it didn't feel to me like we wanted the game to be side to side. So I ended up focusing on 2 or 8, focusing on the directions rather than anything else. But we can actually see, and I missed this, that this was inherently built into the plan. I think this was clearly an idea. I had sort of thought 4367 was reinforcing the weakest corner. But I also now think, seeing it, that it was clearly synergy with Elena that was the game plan here, because that has the plus wall back in 9 and 3, which I completely missed. Yeah, so 9835 is the only capture from 9, and that will likely be pretty easy for Piggyman to reply to, either in 1 or 8 whenever it happens. The only threat Seto has from 3 is 3998, which Piggyman can plus back with 4367. Now that can get comboed, but it doesn't combo the card back in 3. So I think that's pretty secure. So I think this was good thinking, right? He didn't have safety, but he had to look for moves that created little difficulties. So my idea of 8, 9, 8, 2, and 8 was saying you can take from 7, but you probably don't want to. And if you don't take from 7, I'm going to try to block 7, and then you can maybe sort of pretend to be able to take from 9, but you can't really. And Piggyman may have found a much nicer, probably did find a much nicer way to do that here, where you have 2 captures, but it locks up 2 cards in your hand. And they're the only cards that have any right power. Which means they're not as good going left as the other cards in the hand, which means if you hold on to 9, 8, 3, 5 for 9, maybe the last 2 squares in the game will be 8 and 9, and if they force you to play a 9, you're only flipping one thing. You're never flipping a second thing, because that 5 is pretty bad, or so rarely flipping a second thing. So, I really like this move. I think this was a very good move by Piggyman, clearly better than what I was thinking about. And none of my chats are talking much about the game, so I don't have other people's moves to riff off, but other people's ideas. But I think this was a really nice move and puts the pressure back. This, of course, reminds of the Seto-Delial matchup, where Seto started in 5. Delial played actually with the 8, 9, 8, 2, and 4, but a very similar kind of move to this. And Seto found a fantastic move in that position in 7 that really put the pressure on Deli, and Seto ended up winning that game in Nephilim. So we know when people find good moves like this against Seto, he doesn't automatically go in 1 of 1, 4, or 7. He will also check for safety and ways to turn the game around in 3 or 9. So if we assume that's what he looks to do, the way to do that safely is Garuda. So the question is, maybe, is Garuda good in 3 or 9? Though I would also, of course, not be surprised if Seto played in 1 or 7. I could also see something like 5, 5, 8, 7, and 4, but it looks really awkward to me, so I'd be a bit surprised. Okay. So I'm currently expecting Seto to play in one of the corners. Garuda in 3 or 9. How would Piggy meet that? Probably by playing out like a pretty comfortable tie. Like, say, Garuda in 9, let's say Meluda in 3. 3, 9, 9, 8 captures it. Seto's up 6, 4. 8, 9, 8, 2 captures back. It's 5, 5. 9, 8, 3, 5, and 4 captures 1. It's 6, 4. And then 7, 8, 2, 7, and 8 captures 5. It's 5, 5. We made a tie, right? I think there are a lot of variations like that in the air, where just kind of there's going to be one capture each turn. Seto will be up 6, 4, or it will be 5, 5, but Seto will be left with a dead card at the end. And so you're going to get a tie. So unless there's a really good move after 3 or 9, I think that's the kind of line we're likely to get. More complex is if Seto starts in 1 or 7. But one thing Piggy has done here... I was thinking he's created a half safety that, like, Irania's A was covered, but now it can go in 3, but it is covered in 3 as well. Though I kind of suspect Seto's looking to get the 5, 5, 8, 7 out of his hand if he plays in 1 or 3, so maybe it wouldn't be covered. I think this is one of those good games so far where Seto makes a move in 5 and immediately, there's some pressure on Piggy. He has to find something, but Piggy has now found a nice move, and now there is pressure on Seto to have to make a move. And fundamentally, in an argument for the tridirectional cards, Seto, unless 3998 is his final card, really has very little chance to have the needed captures to win in the kind of lines of starting in 3 or 9, right? Like, 3998 is the only card live to have certain powerful effects, right? If that's not his endgame sweeper, he's probably not winning in the kinds of lines I'm looking at. And that's his only tri-directional card. But in the argument for the big corners, it was kind of uncomfortable to find a move for Piggy, right? He didn't have the raw power because it's split in 3 directions to create certain kinds of challenges. Okay, this was not what I bet on. Very interesting. This is not a card with a capturing threat. Now, Piggy has very little combo potential on Seto's cards. That is true. And Seto's 9835 covers the threats in 7 really nicely. And 5587 has the same on one of the others. Alright, so it's tricky for Piggy to go in 7. And Seto has still kept his threats in both 3 and 9. I have some bad ideas. What if Piggy plays 8982 in 8? The point is 9 is dead for Seto. So if Seto goes somewhere like 2, Piggy can play in 7 and should have a very nice position. So I think 8 forces Seto to go in 7, and then Piggy's going to play Arania in 9. And at that point, Piggy will be up 6-4. On the other hand, if Seto has used 5587 in 7, he could then play, Seto could play 3998 in 3, and Piggy cannot capture it from 2, nor can he go in 2 while safe, but Piggy would be able to tie in 1 there. Alright, maybe not that promising. But that's an idea. 8982 and 8, I think, is probably a tie. There's also stuff like just play Arania in 9, because Arania can be captured or Elena can be captured, but not both, right? And Seto probably doesn't want to go 8 because that just gives up 7. And if Seto goes 3 for the T, then couple ways to play it, but one point is 5587 is going to be kind of dead, and 2 is that Arania will now be safe. So Seto would be up 6-4. This is Arania in 9, 3998 in 3. What's her name? Like Limslaya, maybe? And say you just go 4, 3, 6, 7, and 2. That flips 2 cards. Seto can combo back in 1, but now you can stick 7, 8, 2, 7, and 8, flipping 5 back, and 5, 5, 8, 7 never captures anything. So Arania in 9 also seems like a probable tie. Maybe Seto has something in 1 there. But if Seto goes in 1, it's just hard to imagine it's all that scary, I guess. Alright, so if Seto plays 5, 5, 8, 7, and 1 there, then just 7, 8, 2, 7, and 2. So it probably has to play something safe in 1, so I guess it would be 9, 8, 3, 5, and 1. But even then, like, say same thing, or basically same thing. Say 4, 3, 6, 7, and 3. Seto takes with 3, 9, 9, 8, and 2. And then Piggy can play 7, 8, 2, 7, and 8. I think fundamentally the 5, 5, 8, 7 is pretty dead and never going to find a good home. And that's going to be enough to tie this one. That's my theory here. So, like, I think Urania in 9 is a tie. I think 3, 9, 9, 8 is overworked. And while it can do one effective thing, that means you'll get a safe card on the other square, and the opponent is likely to end up with a dead card. So I think Urania 9 is a tie. I think 8, 9, 8, 2, 8 is a tie. I expect there are other ties. I'm not really looking at 3 because anything in 3 is comboed through Elena, and that makes the positions a little less comfortable to play. 9, 7, 1A, and 9 seemed more comfortable to play because the matching 9s meant anything touched doesn't affect the other. And I think 9, 7, 1A, and 9 is really similar to Piggy's initial move of Elena in 6, which is saying you do have ways to capture this, but it gets key power out of your hand and it's uncomfortable for you. Right, Piggy goes for a different move, and it isn't actually susceptible to combo because 3, 9, 9, 8, and 3 is not in fact a combo. It is not safe, but it's also probably not all that touchable. 7, 7, 2, 8 was a useful card in some lines, but it may turn out that Urania is a more useful card to have held on to. Yeah, I can believe that. I think the one downside is against a move like 5, 5, 8, 7, and 1. 7, 8, 2, 7 in 2 is a much better card than 9, 7, 1A and 2 would be, right? So that's my one worry here. On the other hand, against 5, 5, 8, 7, and 1, I guess you just play Urania in 3, and that's safe. Piggy has set up a combo in 8, but I don't think that matters. It never flips anything extra. I think he's gotten his tie, which is a really good result. Obviously, Piggyman is a great player, but Seto is, that very all-time top level. Also, Seto is someone who has given Piggyman trouble in the past. I think Piggyman's greatest foe is Great Sephiroth, but Seto may well be number 2. So, if Piggy can hold this, and I think he will, I think he has, then I think that's a really nice result on second turn against an absolutely fantastic opponent. Should I bring up the solver? Nah. I don't think this position has had, unless there's something here that I'm not seeing, unless Seto has some fantastic move here, I think this is the kind of game where you can pretty comfortably say, like, I guess the reason is I never thought the path to a tie for either player was narrow. And often when you think the path to a tie is narrow, there was actually a win somewhere. But when you thought kind of most moves probably tie and it's a bit unpleasant, the solver will usually tell you most moves did tie, though the paths after each tying move are less pleasant than you expected. Right? That you are maybe under more pressure than you thought, the game's more complicated, but it probably is pretty drawish from both players, so I'm guessing what it would say here is everyone has made good moves, everyone has had a bunch of viable replies, and we're headed towards a well-played tie. This is my suspicion. But now I want to check. But I think let's not check while the game is going. Anything else going on that's worth babbling about on the side? Should make sure the recording's working. Yep. There's some GB games. Dalamar wrote, "We'll try not to forget him in a game while watching the Clan League game being played," and then 14 minutes later wrote ... So I assume he did do that. I assume he did forget he was in a game and timed out. I think this is a well-played game of Triple Triad. To return to the philosophical of the tri-directional versus the two-directional, I think we've really seen some of the case for both, where it's partially because he's managed to line them up really nicely, but Seto has repeatedly, in every line we've looked at, had a bunch of captures until the very end of the game, right? He's always able to overpower stuff. Piggy had no potential safeties out of the opening position, but each line I check, he runs out of captures at the end. He has a dead card, right? One of his corners won't line up, and that card will be poor at the end of the game. And I think that's sort of the case with corner cards versus tri-directional cards. And on the Piggy side, he is always going to have a decent amount of power in every direction, but it can be hard to get it to line up. You know, none of the really pluses or sames we've seen in any lines have been on the Piggy side of the line. It's all been that Seto's hand and his starter in 5 managed to set stuff up. And maybe that's more that Seto put a card in 5 that played nicely with his hand. But it can also be that tri-directional cards are tricky to get the synergy working for. And Piggyman is an incredibly synergistic player. So pushing this on him may have really hurt his chances here. Not that I bullied him into it, but this is clearly not, I think, the kind of hand he would have maximal personal comfort with. But that doesn't mean he handles it badly. Piggy is a phenomenal player, and all phenomenal players have a fair amount of ability to handle things outside of their comfort zone. But it's cool to see him handling something outside of his comfort zone, and I think playing it really well. But of course, we will see how it goes. 5587 has been picked up. I'm sort of expecting it to go in 1. There wasn't really another square. Obviously, it was very much a card he wants out of his hand. 3998 is a really good sweeper for the top. 9835 is a very strong card on the bottom. So 5587 and 1 has very much in both lines we've looked at where Piggy plays a 9 last turn seemed like one of the main lines, if not the key move. And a detriment of Piggy's move in 9 is he doesn't have a good way to meet it in 2 now, but an advantage of it is he now has a good way to meet it in 3. So, yeah, there we go. I think the first move of the game I predicted, but it gets easier as the game goes on. So I would now expect Arania in 3. That is just safe. Nothing to worry about. If Seto goes in 2, then Piggy can just block 8 with 8982 and has a tie against anything. If Seto goes in 8 himself, he takes a 6-4 lead, but Piggy wins by going in 2. Obviously, 8 is a very unlikely move to be good there, but just want to point out for, completion's sake. And if Seto goes in 7 there, if it's 3998, Piggy can capture with 4367 and he wins. If it's 9835, Piggy double captures in 2 and wins. So if Piggy goes in 3, Seto has to go in 2, and we have a tie. So there's a safe, solid, no risk tie for Piggy. Can he find anything better? Now, the thing about tri-directional cards is I think they're really useful for having that endgame sweeper, right? For having the card that will have enough captures at the end that you have a chance to get that second capture or make sure you get at least that one capture to make sure you tie or win. On second turn, they might be a little less powerful because generally the philosophy of first turn is you want to have captures at all points. You want to always be able to capture things. If you can, stuff works pretty well. And on second turn, it is to create difficulty for those captures. This is kind of the theory that you get from playing the no combo always captures game that I constantly talk about. And so Piggy's strong tri-directional cards he's unlikely to need a sweeper at the end of the game. One feature of second turn is for your last move, you have 2 cards available. So you often will have a bunch of directions covered that a single card would not, right? First turn has 1 card for their final move, so you really need it to have sufficient power to play that last move and have an impact on the game. Second turn, you're going to have 2 cards available for every move or more for every move of the game you make. So even if one of them is good in 2 directions and one of them is good in a different 2 directions, that could cover all 4 directions, or you'll almost certainly have at least 3 directions with some power facing it. Second turn is not going to face the same problem of, or at least not near as frequently, of not having a sweeper. So I do think tri-directional cards have more power for the first turn player, because the first turn player wants that final card that can sweep. The second turn player wants to create difficulties. Difficulties are often by having high numbers, and while tri-directional cards will have more mid to high numbers, they won't be as high, right? That's the concession you're making, right? You're taking a 9-8-7 instead of a 9-9, right? You're always giving up a little of that top end power, and so it can be harder to create difficulties. So I think it is something that on average is going to work better for the first turn player. So one could argue both players' hands would have been a little more effective on the other turn than they had, right? And so, yeah, I think an interesting competition of philosophies. And I think it is telling that Seto has held on to his 3-9-9-8 for the endgame. Because I think that is his critical endgame card. And by endgame, I mean move 6 onwards. Sometimes move 5 onwards, but usually I mean move 6 onwards. And Piggy has kept his highest level cards for the endgame. So they've both done, as well as the level 5, right? And this makes some sense, right? You have levels 7, 8, 9, and 10, and he's on second turn. So he does not have to use his level 5. So he has used more impactful cards while keeping his most impactful cards for when they're needed. So all in all, good battle of philosophies, well played game. I think I will bring up the solver now just to make sure nothing strange happened, but I would be just absolutely shocked if it had here. I think, just very reasonable the whole way. It's of course easy to say you think nothing wrong happened when 2 great players are going at it, because the odds of that being the case are so much higher. But I do think it's the case here. And let's boot it up. I'll switch your view over for a moment. So here was our starter. Here was our reply. Takes a bit to get the eval off the starter. Yeah. So it thinks Piggy's move tied, but Seto was not under significant pressure, which is about what I thought. After Seto's next move, Piggyman also not under significant pressure. I thought Piggyman should probably go here, which would tie. I also thought Piggyman could go here, which would tie. And Piggyman, in fact, went here, which was the best tie of those. It gave Seto the most chance to lose. So, well handled by Piggy, better than my ideas. Seto went here, and that is one of the ties. So, yeah, just looks like nothing to talk about here. Well played game. Good job to everyone. All right, we see the expected move. Seto will now go in 2. Piggy will go in 8, and we will have our tie. So what do you the viewer, you're supposed to do this when you're a prominent YouTuber, and I recently passed 100 subscribers, so I'm right there in the record books. What do you think? What did you think here? Was the strong corner hand the way to go with its greater overall power, making sure you could overpower certain things, as well as Seto finding a nice job to synergize with his starter, creating some difficulties? Or did you like Piggyman's making sure all the cards had that third direction they were really good in to make sure he would have really substantial power in every direction? Like, we added up Seto's power in each direction after his starter, but including his starter, I think he was 26, 26, 23, 30. So including his starter, he was 31, 33, 28, 34. 31, 33, 28, 34. So that's like an average of around 32 in each direction. And if we look at Piggy's hand, one sec, just putting the last few moves into my database. If we look at Piggy's hand, he had how much going up? 9, 17, 24, 32, 36. To the right, he had 7, 8, 16, 25, 28. Down, he had 1, 10, 12, 20, 26. I didn't notice how Piggy's hand was significantly weaker down right. And left, he had 7, 9, 16, 24, 34. So maybe around a similar average, but higher variance in the cards, right? Piggy's hand has a lot more 1s, but more kind of 7s, right? Okay, good game, I think. Let's quickly check if anything else fun is going on. Nope, so let's call it a day. Nice game.